He concludes that heading home might be the best course of action. As he turns to leave, his gaze falls upon Miyuki, accompanied by another man. She greets him with a bright smile, her arms entwined around her companion. The sight leaves him utterly frozen, speechless, struggling to even whisper her name. He questions whether she truly is Miyuki. When Miyuki finally notices him, her expression shifts to one of pure shock. Overcome with an intense mixture of rage and heartbreak, he surges forward, seizing her arm forcefully. Without hesitation, the blond man delivers a sharp punch to his face, staggering him. Gazing at Miyuki with despair, he receives the final blow from her companion. The man cruelly remarks that Miyuki often makes such claims during intimate moments, all the while with a disturbing smile. She continues her cold, deceitful lie, branding him as a dreadful, abusive partner. Their story begins with a simple text message exchange. Miyuki sends a message to E.G., apologizing, explaining that her club commitments prevent her from meeting that evening. E.G. responds understandingly, reassuring her that it's perfectly fine and wishing her luck with her practice. The scene then shifts to E.G. himself, sitting alone on a train with a sorrowful, disappointed expression as he clutches his phone. He reflects that today was supposed to be a special anniversary celebration. His thoughts drift to Miyuki, his childhood friend to whom he had confessed feelings last Christmas. To him, Miyuki is like a beloved idol he has admired for years. He believes that if they hadn't been childhood friends, he might never have found the courage to speak to her, much less hope for a romantic relationship. 6 months have passed since then, yet his shyness has kept them from even sharing a kiss. E.G. cannot believe Miyuki canceled their first official date as a couple after all the effort he had invested. He had envisioned this day perfectly. Later, he finds himself on a busy street, surrounded by strangers. He pauses, looking up at a nearby building, realizing it's the movie theater where they plan to go. His mind drifts to imagining sitting beside Miyuki in the dark theater, watching a film together. Blushing, he quickly dismisses the thought, feeling flustered and confused by his own daydreaming. Suddenly, he stops in his tracks, a puzzled look on his face. Glancing to the side, he notices a couple sharing a kiss near a doorway, and realization dawns. The area is filled with couples, and he recognizes he's in the district of love hotels. His cheeks turn crimson with shock and embarrassment. His imagination continues to wander. He envisions himself in a hotel room with Miyuki, who nervously peels off her clothes with an embarrassed expression, hesitating as she sits on the bed's edge. He feels a rush of longing but quickly snaps out of his fantasy, feeling foolish for his thoughts. Deciding it's best to head home, he starts to turn away. However, in that moment, his eyes catch Miyuki walking with another man, and the scene shifts once more. Miyuki's expression lights up with genuine happiness as she clings tightly to his arm, while E.G. stands completely immobilized. His voice barely escapes him as he questions whether she is truly Miyuki, struggling to recognize her. Finally noticing E.G., Miyuki's face shifts to one of utter shock, her eyes wide with disbelief. She inquires softly why he is there, unable to hide her surprise. Suddenly, overwhelmed by a surge of anger and pain, E.G. lunges forward, grabbing Miyuki's arm with force. Without hesitation, a blond man swiftly delivers a powerful punch directly to E.G.'s face, causing him to stumble backward and hit the ground. The blond man narrows his eyes, confronting E.G. with blazing anger, demanding to know what he thinks he's doing to his girl. E.G., stunned, questions what he's talking about, a cruel smirk flickering as he accuses Miyuki of cheating. The blond man dismisses E.G. as a stalker and turns to Miyuki, urging her to speak to him as well. He mockingly tells E.G. that Miyuki only dates him because they are childhood friends and that she finds him dull. The man also mentions her disapproval of E.G.'s sweaty hands, calling them gross. Heartbroken and tense, E.G. gazes at Miyuki, but the man delivers a final, devastating blow. He claims Miyuki frequently makes such declarations during intimate moments. E.G.'s face is flooded with horror and despair, frozen in shock as he struggles to process her words. Clutching his chest in disbelief, He feels his world collapsing. The blonde man then turns to Miyuki and sarcastically asks what she is upset about, hinting he could end their relationship immediately if she prefers E.G. With an angry glare, he gives her a stark ultimatum. Break up with him or with E.G. Tears fill Miyuki's eyes as she bites her lip, anguish visible on her face. Desperately, she pleads with him not to leave, crying out that she cannot go on if he deserts her. He gently pats her head, murmuring that as long as she understands that, it is enough. But he isn't finished. Turning back to Miyuki, he demands that she explicitly state who E.G. truly is. Her face darkening with shadow, Miyuki hesitates briefly before speaking. She claims E.G. was her childhood friend, but then describes him as clingy, possessive, even stalking her. Her cruel words are accompanied by a disturbing smile as she falsely portrays him as a horrible, abusive boyfriend. E.G. watches in shock, his eyes wide and terrified, barely able to pronounce her name. From that moment, his once joyous daily life begins to unravel. The scene shifts to a restaurant named On No Kitchen. E.G. enters with a somber expression, greeted by a young man in a bandana and a woman working behind the counter. The young man greets him cheerfully, welcoming him home early, while the woman comments with a smile that he arrived sooner than expected. The young man offers to prepare something to eat, but E.G. responds curtly, saying he's fine and thanking them. Lost and overwhelmed, E.G. ends up lying in bed, feeling aimless and powerless, just waiting for time to pass. The woman from the kitchen appears at his door, asking if he intends to skip lunch. He confirms stubbornly that he will not eat. This scene repeats itself repeatedly, emphasizing his spiraling despair. E.G. was haunted by relentless nightmares, each more terrifying than the last. In his dreams, a sinister sky loomed overhead as he watched Miyuki being embraced by her senior. In another scene, Miyuki was in her senior's arms, whispering that E.G. was repulsive, misunderstood their childhood friendship, and was now possessive. He saw himself small and helpless behind a pane of glass, while his senior's voice urged Miyuki to forget her creepy stalker and focus on him. Miyuki's voice responded with a simple yes. Trapped inside this dark vision, E.G. begged for the nightmare to end, until he suddenly awoke in his bed, panicked and trembling. The fear was so overwhelming that he hesitated to drift back into sleep. At school, life was equally difficult. A friend of E.G.'s placed a casual arm around him, attempting to cheer him up. The friend asked brightly about Miyuki, but E.G.'s response was strained. He forced a laugh, unsure of what to say. As he looked around, he saw Miyuki with her back turned, then turned suddenly at the sound of her name, surprised to see him. Her friend quickly warned E.G. to stay away from Miyuki and accused him of being a disgusting stalker. Without hesitation, she took Miyuki's arm and pulled her away, her face full of protective anger. Turning to E.G., she threatened that if he continued to obsess over Miyuki, she wouldn't let him get away with it. They left him standing there, her words emphasizing that Miyuki should ignore stalkers like him. E.G. watched them go, feeling defeated and hollow. The scene shifted again, bringing him back to his family's restaurant, Ono Kitchen. Later, alone in his room, E.G. sat on his bed, clutching his phone. His face suddenly turned pale as he unlocked the device and saw a threatening email from an unknown sender. The message was simple and brutal, "Die," and labeled him disgusting. His screen flooded with similar abusive messages, calling him an abuser, a violent idiot, a creeper, and the worst kind of stalker. The harsh words echoed in his mind, accusing him of betrayal and telling him he didn't deserve mercy. Horror twisted his face as he struggled to grasp what was happening. He felt utterly powerless, overwhelmed by a surge of anguish and helplessness. He rose sharply from his bed, trembling with rage and despair. The barrage of hateful messages commanded him never to return to school. The following day, E.G. hesitated outside his classroom door, his hand trembling. He whispered to himself that he needed to act normally to endure. But as he entered, all the students turned to stare at him, filling the room with a tense, oppressive silence. E.G. approached his desk, sat down, and froze, his face a mask of horror. The cruel whispers of judgment rang in his ears, telling him to vanish. Some called him disgusting and irritating, while others labeled him the worst, a worthless trash. He feels deep inside that he has done nothing to deserve this harsh treatment. Suddenly, Miyuki's friend slams her hand down on his desk, commanding him to be silent and labeling him a criminal. She vehemently insists that Miyuki would never lie. Shock washes over him as he hears Senpai from the soccer team claim she saw everything clearly. He begins to grasp the brutal truth of his predicament. Two prominent students against a criminal like himself. With undeniable conviction, she asserts that anyone would naturally believe them. Overcome by defeat, E.G. lowers his gaze and sinks into despair. He silently wishes he could stop hearing such accusations, feeling overwhelmed by hopelessness. Resting his head on the desk, he questions why it had to come to this. While the other students enjoy themselves, chatting and joking in the classroom, E.G. sits alone on a bench outside, eating his lunch in silence. His attention shifts to his phone when a notification appears, announcing the sudden cancellation of today's club meeting. He realizes there's no one left in the classroom he can trust, yet he decides to go to the clubroom anyway, hoping someone might still be there. Behind the door, he overhears voices from his clubmates. One asks if another made sure to lie and inform Ono that the meeting was called off, mentioning they messaged him during lunch and remarking that he's intimidating. They discuss what to do with a draft, and another coldly affirms it has already been discarded. Their contempt is clear. They mock his lack of talent despite the effort he puts into his work. Their words sting sharply. Tears streak his face. Suddenly, an idea strikes him. He thinks Professor Yas might still be inside the classroom. Approaching cautiously, he stops at the door when he hears Miyuki's friend talking to the teacher. She remarks that Miyuki has seemed very worried lately, and the teacher comments that it's rare for Miyuki to face problems. She asks if her involvement stems from her kindness. Miyuki simply replies she's fine. Heart-pounding, E.G. rushes down the hall, recalling his teacher's encouraging words. He reaches his locker and finds another sinister note threatening him, warning that if he complains, they will come to his family's shop. As the school day ends, students head home, and E.G. is seen sprinting away from the school gates. He arrives at his family's restaurant, where the doorbell rings softly. His mother greets him warmly, asking if the club meeting was cancelled. She understands, noting it was sudden, and expresses concern about his recent state. She advises him to rest properly. He thanks her silently. His mother adds that even if he and his brother are tired, they shouldn't worry about their parents. His brother reassures him, suggesting he should just enjoy school. That's all he needs to focus on. Since their father's passing, E.G.'s mother has never shed a tear in front of him or his older brother, always choosing to wear a smile to shield them from her pain. Their older sibling has silently taken on the responsibility of protecting the family business in their father's stead. With quiet determination, E.G. commits to doing his best, convinced that as long as he bears the burden, no one else needs to suffer. Meanwhile, Miyuki's regret lingers as the scene shifts to her room early in the morning. She sits alone on her bed, insomnia tormenting her since that day. Unable to find rest, she repeatedly wonders if it was all just a nightmare, questioning why things had to end so painfully. She imagines an alternate reality where Kondo-senpai wasn't present. Perhaps she would have clung to E.G., tears in her eyes, pleading to avoid their breakup. Seeing E.G. being bullied nearly made her cry too. Yet she suppresses her tears, feeling she has no right to express her pain. Her friends misunderstood the situation, believing it was merely a difficult experience, and introduced her to Kondo-senpai. She recalls how she initially wanted to decline, but he was the star athlete of the soccer team. Athletic, intelligent, handsome, and kind. Unlike her and E.G., who were each other's first love, Kondo-senpai viewed relationships with a more mature perspective. To Miyuki, he seemed extraordinarily attractive. He flirted openly, commenting that any guy would naturally be attracted to a girl as adorable as her. He joked that if it were him, he wouldn't have hesitated to make a move, then laughed and said he was just joking. Always attentive, He asked if she wanted another drink and offered to get it for her. Gazing seriously, he told her she was very attractive, implying that E.G. might have been intimidated by her charm. The scene shifts to a city backdrop where Kondo-senpai pulls Miyuki close and kisses her passionately. Miyuki reflects on everything she should have shared with E.G., realizing how swiftly Kondo-senpai managed to take it all away. The narrative moves into a bedroom scene, where Kondo-senpai, smiling confidently, assures her it's okay. He claims that failing to act on a girl as attractive as Miyuki is someone else's fault, not hers. He continues to manipulate her, insisting she bears no blame and that E.G. was the one who failed as a man. Miyuki perceives herself as an ideal target for these tactics, partly feeling comfortable with the guilt. Once she became dependent, she sensed there was no escape. He suggests they go out on the 30th, as the club meeting was cancelled. Miyuki hesitantly mentions that the date is E.G.'s birthday, but Kondo-senpai dismisses her concern with disdain. Glancing at his phone, he remarks that it doesn't matter. He would just invite another girl instead. Shocked beyond words, Miyuki struggles to respond. Kondo-senpai then turns the situation around, accusing her of always prioritizing E.G., making her feel guilty. He declares he's tired of chasing her and suggests they should break up. With a trembling expression, Miyuki desperately pleaded for him to wait and questioned the meaning of his words. He concluded by suggesting that their happiness could be shared if they followed this path. Relying on his kindness, she had chosen the senpai, someone she had spent more than 10 years with, her destined partner. She felt an overwhelming urge to come clean to everyone, yet her inner voice urged her to remain silent. She was aware she had betrayed trust and told falsehoods, but the fear of losing everything loomed large in her mind. The following day at school, E.G.'s life transformed into a relentless nightmare. His shoes were trampled and dirted, his desk vandalized with trash and hateful notes telling him to die. As he moved down the corridor, he overheard classmates speaking about him. A group of boys taunted that he was the violent and repulsive type, sympathizing with Miyuki's apparent choice. 2 girls also discussed him. One remarked that Kondo-senpai was so cool for getting rid of him, while the other said she didn't even want to talk to E.G. Entering a classroom, E.G. was horrified to see the blackboard covered in cruel words and pictures, images of himself and even photos of his family's restaurant. It struck him painfully that his actions had jeopardized his family's safety. He kept asking himself why this was happening. Overcome by rage and despair, he punched the wall with all his strength, screaming in anguish and demanding answers. Suddenly, Kondo-senpai appeared with a cold, satisfied smile. He mocked E.G., calling him a criminal boy, with fury etched on his face. For example, confronted him, demanding an explanation for spreading such vile lies. Kondo-senpai, with a sadistic grin, revealed his true motive. He simply enjoyed the chaos. He sneered that watching E.G. lose everything was amusing and blamed E.G. for believing someone like Miyuki could be with him. He even suggested E.G. should drop out of school altogether. His wicked grin widened as he confessed that he loved destroying lives. Crushed by the revelation, E.G. collapsed to his knees, overwhelmed by despair. He felt as though everything was lost. The scene shifted to the school infirmary, where a concerned nurse stood beside E.G.'s bed, promising to notify his teacher just in case. With his head bowed and utterly defeated, E.G. muttered a faint thanks. He stared blankly at the ceiling, haunted by a terrible thought. Reaching out for the door handle, he wondered if jumping from the rooftop might make everything easier. Climbing to the school rooftop, E.G.'s dark silhouette was stark against the bright sky. At that moment, a girl appeared. E.G. looked up, hopeless and expressionless. It was then that he met her. A girl with blonde hair and green eyes, standing before him on the rooftop, the one who would change his life forever. The biting wind howled as he stood on the precipice, torn between his despair and the encounter that might offer a new path. His gaze was as vacant as the endless sky above, every gust of wind seeming to reflect his inner emptiness. A silent witness to a defeat he couldn't put into words. A sharp, piercing voice suddenly cut through the bleak silence. "Who are you?" He turned sharply, his eyes locking onto hers. She was Ichi-Jo, the school's renowned prodigy, her presence a stark contrast to his own despair. He mumbled a feeble excuse, claiming he had skipped class and was wandering aimlessly until he found himself on the very roof. Behind his words lay a heavy, unspoken secret. He had come here intending to end his life. Recognizing him, Ichi-Jo addressed him as Ono-senpai with a flicker of surprise in her eyes. She knew him, the top-ranked student, admired for her delicate beauty and natural charm that had captivated the school since her arrival. He had heard the countless whispers and confessions, approximately a dozen boys, all drawn to her irresistible allure. Yet now her expression was far from gentle. A trace of irritation creased her brow as she muttered, "Why did you have to show up now?" Her voice edged with annoyance. AG, seeking a moment of solitude, tried to explain himself. He only needed a quiet break until lunchtime, a safe place away from cruel rumors that clung to him like a shroud. Politely, he asked her to leave him in peace. Her response was swift, resolute. No, her voice rose defiantly. "This place is mine. I won't give it up." AG, taken aback, pressed further. "Are you sure? You know the rumors about me, don't you?" Her eyes flashed with simmering anger as she met his gaze. "Yes, I do," she replied firmly. Her unwavering stance, despite the whispers and accusations swirling around him, was shocking. She exhaled slowly, irritation evident. "As I said, I know about the rumors, but they're just that, rumors. I've never seen anything with my own eyes." Her tone softened, tinged with fatigue. "Love," she continued quietly, "is almost like a disease. Why do people believe a one-sided story told by only one person?" Her expression grew tense again. "Nowadays, people believe only what they want whenever it suits them. It's disgusting to point fingers without knowing the truth." A fragile flicker of hope sparked in AG's eyes. He looked down, hesitation evident as he asked softly, "Does that mean you believe me?" Her response was firm and unwavering. "It's not about believing or not. Judging someone based on biased gossip is wrong." Her words hit him like a physical blow, causing his eyes to widen as tears threatened to fall, a wave of relief washing over him. "Thank you," he whispered, almost inaudibly. Her eyes widened in surprise, a flicker of irritation returning as she asked, "Why are you thanking me? Especially me?" AG chuckled, a small, broken sound. "If you don't understand, that's fine," he murmured. Then, suddenly, the silent rooftop was broken by a relentless downpour, as rain began to pour heavily around them. Rain hammered down suddenly, soaking both of them in an instant. "We should go inside," AG suggested softly, his voice barely rising above the relentless storm, "so we won't catch a cold." His words were gentle, but Ichi-Jo's reply was fierce and instinctive. "Leave me alone," she shouted, her face streaked with rain and twisted in fury. "Don't you understand?" she screamed, her voice raw with frustration. "Why am I here all alone?" Bewildered by her sudden outburst, AG could only ask, "What's the point?" She cried out bleakly, "It doesn't matter if I get sick from the rain. Tomorrow means nothing to me." Her words hung heavy in the air, engulfed in despair, leaving AG frozen. As she turned to run away, he snapped out of his daze. "Wait!" he cried, rushing after her and grabbing her wrist firmly. "Stop!" Ichi-Jo struggled, her eyes wide with panic as the storm raged around them. "Enough!" AG roared, his voice piercing through the pouring rain. Suddenly, she slipped on the wet ground, a scream tearing from her lips as she fell. Reacting instinctively, AG caught her, but their momentum carried them against the fence at the rooftop's edge. "Why did you protect me?" Ichi-Jo demanded, anger flickering in her voice even as she clung to him. "If the railing had been rusty—" "Be quiet," AG cut her off sharply, his own feelings boiling over. "There's no reason not to help someone." In that moment, a surprising proposal escaped him, almost lost in the downpour. "If you're desperate to die, at least spend this last day with me." We could skip class together. Ichijo stared, stunned. Skip class? She repeated, voice trembling. Do you even get how serious this is? She yelled, her frustration momentarily overriding her despair. Yet, a strange sense of resignation settled over her. Maybe I don't have much choice. Sitting on the rain-slicked ground, AG made a shocking confession. I came here thinking about ending my life too. He paused, a faint smile grazing his lips. But I never imagined I'd be the one stopping someone else from doing so. Her eyes widened in disbelief, and AG stayed seated, tears streaming down his face, a wistful smile on his own lips. Yeah, she whispered softly. That's just how it is. The scene shifted. There they were, side by side on the rooftop, rain still falling, sharing a fragile moment of understanding. Later, they chose to leave. It's better to go inside now, AG suggested quietly. Ichijo nodded, accepting a handkerchief he offered her. Use this, he encouraged. She hesitated but then took it, modestly drying her face. Thanks, she said softly, voice tinged with embarrassment. Don't stare at me like that. AG quickly looked away, apologizing, then glanced back as she dabbed her face with the cloth. You're looking at me again, even though I told you not to, she teased with a playful spark in her eyes. That's harassment, she added mischievously. Flustered, AG hurriedly apologized once more. In a softer voice, she inquired, What are we supposed to do now? Turning toward him, a faint smile curved her lips. Since you suggested we skip class, you must have an idea. AG grinned, admitting, I don't really have a plan. I just said it out of desperation. He reflected inwardly, realizing this was what her smile looked like. Memories of rumors about her flooded his mind, how she often dismissed the feelings of boys who had confessed their love. To his surprise, she hadn't rejected his suggestion outright. Do you want to come to my house? She asked, her face flushed, almost unable to respond. The scene shifted, and they left the rooftop, walking down the corridor. How are we going to get out of school? Ichijo questioned, eyeing the locked main gate. Are you thinking of climbing over? AG replied. Indignant, Ichijo protested. I'm wearing a skirt. I was joking. I know, AG said with a hint of amusement. Then he explained his plan. An iron door beside the main entrance. It could be unlocked from inside and closed automatically afterward. It allowed easy exit but made entry difficult. Suspicious, Ichijo asked how he knew of such an exit. AG teased her gently, implying that a model student wouldn't be aware of such details. He added that skipping class now and then wasn't the end of the world. Her hair curtain concealed her face as she silently questioned her own motives. Why was she even contemplating skipping school with someone she barely knew? The familiar words, I will protect you, echoed in her mind, a phrase she had heard countless times during confessions. Once meant to comfort, they now stirred painful memories she wished to forget. She thought of the boys who had tried to win her over with promises of safety, only to leave her feeling trapped. Yet, Iono-senpai was different. He had never spoken those words she despised, and his genuine kindness unsettled her in a different way. A faint glimmer of hope sparked within, the possibility that with him, she could escape the misery that had overtaken her life. Suddenly, the scene shifted again. A young man with light-colored hair appeared amidst a lush display of flowers. His confident attitude radiated arrogance. This was Kondo C, self-proclaimed king of his world. He reminisced about his perfect life, his father, a prominent city councilor, ensuring his place in one of the top 3 schools in the prefecture. There, he had become the star of the soccer team, even leading a seemingly weak squad to the national tournament. His athletic skill made him an irreplaceable team pillar. Tall, handsome, intelligent, he had excelled effortlessly from childhood. Popularity seemed natural to him. From his first girlfriend in 3rd grade, he had always been surrounded by admirers, effortlessly maintaining his relationships. One memory from his 8th grade year remained vividly etched in his mind. The class nerd was dating the group's idol, a relationship built on innocent, almost naive childhood bonds, with both believing they would one day marry. Kondo watched this scene with quiet disdain, having predicted its eventual collapse. True to his expectations, the girl quickly succumbed to the charm of a more popular peer, abandoning her former boyfriend without a second thought. She later declared that being with the nerd had been the greatest shame of her life, calling him disgusting and pathetic. The betrayed boy was left weeping in despair, clutching onto a promise she had once made to marry him. A promise now reduced to a cruel joke. Kondo and his friends erupted into laughter at the boy's anguish, finding the entire situation utterly hilarious. He even recorded the girl's venomous insults and replayed them for the heartbroken boy, just for his own amusement. For Kondo, the satisfaction of conquest brought an almost addictive thrill, and from that moment, he developed a twisted pleasure in stealing other boys' girls. He recalled how girls, ensnared by his charm, often neglected their studies. He effortlessly shattered childhood friendships, transforming innocent bonds into bitter rivalries, and then discarded his victims once his purpose was served. As high school approached, Kondo abruptly ended his relationship with that girl, callously dismissing her as stupid for not understanding his motives. She cried helplessly, pleading with him to explain why he was ending things, insisting she had sacrificed everything to be with him. With a cold smile, Kondo typed on his phone that he truly hated easy women. Without hesitation, he then told her, standing before him, that he hated her and that it was over. Her eyes widened with shock and despair. But for Kondo, it was merely another source of amusement. The once admired class idol had fallen to a humiliating low. From a figure of admiration, she now was reduced to misery. For Kondo, destroying lives, both men's and women's, brought him immense pleasure. He laughed aloud, reveling in the suffering of others as if it were entertainment. Then he turned his attention to his next target, Amidamoki. A cruel smile twisted on his face, eyes gleaming with malicious intent. He planned to bring down both Aji and Miyuki. His accomplices began spreading malicious rumors via cell phones. A social media post appeared. "Please share this. This girl is being abused by her boyfriend." The post was accompanied by a photo of a bruised arm, feeding the fabricated story. Meanwhile, inside the classroom, Miyuki was overwhelmed with helplessness. Aji hadn't returned since that morning. Her classmates, who had scribbled insults on his desk, now desperately tried to erase their blasphemous messages. Her heart clenched tight. She wondered if Aji had given up on school because of her. Amid her growing anxiety, she recalled her own innocence, never imagining Kondo capable of spreading such heartless lies. Her eyes welled with tears, her hands trembled uncontrollably. But then, glancing out the window, she saw Aji in the distance, and everything else seemed to fade. Her eyes widened with a mix of astonishment and hope as she called out his name, desperation thick in her voice. Yet what she saw next rendered her motionless. Aji was not alone. He was running hand in hand with another girl. Miyuki's smile immediately froze, unable to grasp the reality unfolding before her. A sharp pain pierced her chest, leaving her stunned. Conflicting thoughts swirled in her mind, threatening to tip her fragile sanity. Tears blurred her vision as her face twisted with a blend of hatred and confusion. She longed to know her, her heart pounding for answers. Later, Professor Taken McGee, the teacher of Class 2B, resumed the attendance rolling call for the new semester. He called each name in order until he reached Iono, but Aji remained silent. On his desk, angry words, big and brutal, were carved. "Die, loser. Get out." The teacher paused, glancing around before asking if anyone knew where Iono could be. The students exchanged nervous looks until someone explained that Ono had said he was unwell and had gone to the infirmary. The teacher promised to check but first directed everyone to head to the gym. Miyuki's body trembled as her name was called. Her hands clenched tightly in her lap, sweat streaming down her face. In the hallway, Nurse Mitsui hurried over, her voice urgent with concern. She needed to speak about Iono. The teacher admitted he hadn't yet looked for him. The nurse, distressed, explained Iono had appeared strange before leaving and that she should have stopped him, even if it meant physical force. She urged them to search the entire school, and the teacher agreed to notify the vice principal. The vice principal listened carefully and decided to hold a strategic meeting after classes to discuss the matter. He asked the teacher to investigate thoroughly what had transpired with the students. The teacher nodded resolutely. Returning to the classroom, he addressed all the students, announcing a serious issue concerning property damage. The class grew tense and restless. The teacher explained that the damage was to Ono's desk. Some students avoided eye contact nervously, while others stared at the desk, marred with cruel words. He emphasized that even if someone believed Ono was a difficult student, no excuse existed for carving insults into his desk. Destroying school property, maintained with the students' families' taxes, was a serious crime. Miyuki shrank further, unable to meet his gaze, her expression etched with remorse. The teacher declared he would not dismiss this act as simple bullying. He clarified it was a crime, not just childish mischief, and must be taken seriously. With a stern tone, he urged everyone to remember this lesson deeply. Just 30 minutes after Takeyaji-sensei's stern reprimand echoed across the hallways, the principal burst in, visibly hurried and apologizing for his lateness. His words were barely audible amid the tense atmosphere. The vice principal sat stiffly, silent and watchful, while Takeyonaji and the teacher, faces lined with concern, took their seats. The principal, ever diplomatic, bowed deeply first to Takeyaji, an act of respect intertwined with urgency. His voice carried a weight of seriousness as he expressed gratitude for their swift response. Nothing, he emphasized, could be more critical than conveying such troubling news. Takeyaji fixed his gaze on some unseen point, silently admitting his own responsibility. It was his failure too, he confessed, for not maintaining control over the class. He expressed deep regret. Sensei, renowned for his calming presence, stepped forward to speak next. His tone was gentle as he acknowledged the challenges teachers face daily. Takenaji had done his utmost, he assured, and the students had even tried to conceal the incident. The principal, pragmatic and direct, cut in, emphasizing that it's more important to focus on the way forward rather than dwell on the past. He nodded in agreement with Sensei's outlook. Iwai then described his proactive approach. He had contacted Ono's parents while Takeyaji was confronting the students. His aim had been to ensure the boy's well-being after his early departure from school. In speaking with the parents, he confirmed that Ono had felt unwell and inquired about his condition. Their response, Ono had arrived home safely, brought a collective sigh of relief. The principal exhaled slowly, feeling relief wash over him. That was a good outcome, he murmured. But his tone quickly hardened with resolve. Protecting Akuin was now a priority. He issued a stark warning. If the boy started skipping lessons or decided to abandon school, the repercussions would be severe. Takenaji agreed, his face grim, emphasizing the need for close supervision. We will monitor him carefully and handle it properly, he affirmed. Meanwhile, contrasting sharply with the subdued concern among the faculty, a different scene played out. On Kondo's phone, messages from Sayaka flashed across the screen, proposing a meeting at her house after the club. Suddenly, two boys hurried over to Kondo, their faces flushed and voices hurried. Important news, they burst out. They recounted their reckless misadventure. When they attempted to threaten Ono by scribbling on his desk, they had been caught in the act. Then, they delivered a startling revelation. Takeyaji-sensei was investigating the case. Kondo scowled, a sneer curling his lips. The teacher was quick to act. He muttered inwardly, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face. He had assumed the incident would be brushed aside easily. But even if it escalated, he believed it didn't matter. His father would handle everything. He dismissed their concerns with a careless wave. I understand, one of the boys pressed on, still uneasy. Don't be so relaxed, they warned him. We did it for you, they added. Kondo abruptly cut them off, his calm but dangerous tone asserting itself. When had I ever told anyone to do such a thing? He challenged sharply. The boys froze, their faces a mask of shock. You only wanted to vent your own frustrations, he accused, voice rising. You acted alone and even damaged school property. One of them, desperate to deny involvement, stammered, claiming it was impossible. Let's pretend we knew nothing, he suggested, especially since no one had been caught. Kondo's stare was icy, chilling in its intensity. Obey. His voice rumbled softly but with an unmistakable edge of menace. Fail to listen, and your future will be shattered. Everything will come to an end. He spat the last word with deliberate harshness. His command was final, to obey without question. Outside, under the gentle glow of the afternoon sun, Ono and the girl sat quietly on a park bench, taking a rare moment of respite from the chaos of the day. Ono's voice was subdued as he looked at her. "Are you okay?" he asked. She let out a weary sigh, her voice tinged with fatigue. "It's not easy keeping up with a boy," she admitted, her thoughts drifting back to their hurried escape. She reflected on how much running they had done. Yet Ono was impressed. He thought to himself that she had actually managed to match his pace. Ichigo, a girl who typically avoided club invitations, seemed to shy away, even when she was praised. On the bench, Ono suggested, "If that's how it is, maybe we should head out." A faint blush appeared on her cheeks as she responded with a complaint. "You often pull me by the hand." He smirked, a playful sparkle igniting his eyes. "Perhaps she's the first girl I've ever taken by the hand," he mused aloud. She scoffed at his words. "That's a lie. You say that just to tease." A peaceful silence settled between them as they strolled down the street, comfortable in each other's company. The scene then shifted to Ono's family restaurant, a cozy and welcoming space. Inside, Ono's mother looked up, surprised to see him returning so early. "I came back because I wasn't feeling well," Ono explained, "and I brought a classmate along." Her curiosity was piqued. "I never expected him to skip school," she remarked. When her eyes found the girl, a warm smile blossomed on her face. The narrative then traced the story of the family's history. Ono's father, a celebrated chef, had worked in the kitchens of luxury hotels. He carefully saved every penny, pouring his passion into opening the Ono restaurant. His mother, once a patron, had fallen in love amid the clatter of dishes and the scent of spices. They married and built their business together, dreams crafted into reality. But fate intervened when his father passed away. Since then, Ono's mother, equipped with an accounting degree, had taken control of the restaurant, supported steadfastly by dedicated staff. Ono's older brother, a culinary scholar, inherited the kitchen, ensuring their legacy endured. Back in the present, their mother, ever the gracious hostess, suggested, "You two can use the restroom in the back. Business will pick up soon." A gentle smile played across her face. "I'll also prepare some lunch for you." Ono expressed his thanks and then invited Ichigo inside. She hesitated briefly before stepping in, polite yet shy. With a refined bow, she introduced herself. "My name is Ichigo," she said. "A junior classmate of Ono-senpai," she added. "He has always looked out for me," she continued, then apologized shyly. "Sorry for being a bother." Their mother and brother stared in surprise, their reactions almost in unison. "We never imagined Ono would bring such a cute classmate home," they murmured softly. The mother, enthusiasm bubbling over, praised the girl with words full of warmth and affection. She encouraged her to relax, then let out a joyful laugh that filled the room with happiness. "Consider this your own home," she said kindly. Ichigo, a gentle smile touching her lips, expressed her gratitude. Inside the restroom, Ichigo's eyes wandered over the menu, her voice light and curious as she turned to Ono. "Senpai, do you have any recommendations?" Ono responded promptly, mentioning that the house's specialty was curry rice, his eyes shining with enthusiasm. Ichigo's face lit up. "It looks so delicious," she exclaimed excitedly. Meanwhile, Ono had already placed their order. He apologized for the place's small size as she looked around, taking in the cozy atmosphere. She replied that she found the setting quite charming. She mentioned that her own apartment lacked a traditional Japanese room, explaining that the restroom in her family's home was used by her mother and brother. Ono added that they kept collections of cooking books in that space, and she smiled warmly, feeling a sense of comfort. "It's easy to see why the room feels so welcoming," she said. "Your family seems very close-knit." Their mother then entered, carrying a tray filled with food. "Sorry for the delay," she apologized. "Here is your special lunch." Ichigo's eyes lit up at the sight of the vibrant dishes before her. The mother continued, "There's a nice extra. After the meal, you can choose between coffee or tea." Ichigo responded immediately, "I'll have tea," her choice swift and resolute. The mother's face brightened. "Really? You like black tea?" she asked, a touch of surprise in her voice. Ichigo nodded. "Yes, I love it." The mother's smile widened, pleased by the coincidence. Ono, observing this exchange, also enjoyed black tea and felt a kinship with her choice. They settled at a low table, a peaceful silence enveloping them. The mother promised she would come back later to serve the rest of the food and then left them to enjoy their meal. Ono and Ichigo clasped their hands in a silent gesture of gratitude. They both expressed thanks for the meal and then began eating. Ichigo took the first bite, her eyes closing in blissful satisfaction. "It's delicious," she whispered, a contented smile spreading across her face. As she chewed, Ono's mind drifted into quiet reflection. Not long ago, he had wanted to give up on everything, yet now he sat there, watching Ichigo's bright smile as she enjoyed the food. She sampled the tonkatsu soup next, her face lit with pleasant surprise. "It's also wonderful," she remarked. Ono explained that the recipe was a family secret from her late father. "It's made with vegetables and onions that are cooked for hours," he added. "Even with little salt, its flavor remains rich and intense." A surge of pride filled him as he spoke. "I'm very proud of my father," he admitted quietly. She looked moved, her voice softening. "Your father must have been a good man," she said gently. "You can see the love poured into this dish." Ono smiled, genuine warmth shining through. "Talking about the food feels like praising my father himself," he replied. Ichigo, called his senpai with a slightly trembling voice, nodded appreciatively, grateful for the connection forged over shared flavors. "Can I still go on living?" she asked, her voice hanging heavily in the silent air. Memories of sleepless nights filled with crushing anxiety flashed through her mind. She confessed her feelings of constant pressure, the weight that bore down on her every moment. On the rooftop, she had stared at the sky in quiet contemplation, a resolute determination settling deep within her. She believed she had made her final decision. Yet then she encountered someone who risked his own safety to protect her. Tears welled up unexpectedly. "My resolve is beginning to falter," she admitted softly. Ono looked at her with unwavering eyes. "I don't know what's happened in your life," he began sincerely. He tried to be honest despite the harshness that might have sounded. "But I want you to know, I've been saved by your presence." Ono's face softened into an honest smile, a flicker of hope shining through. His wish was simple yet profound. He genuinely hoped that Ichigo would keep living, that she would keep pushing forward despite everything. His words resonated deeply within her, stirring her innermost feelings. Usually striving to maintain control, she suddenly found herself overwhelmed. Her face crumpled, tears streaming freely as she let out a loud, unrestrained cry in front of him. He watched her silently, a realization dawning within him. Perhaps this was the moment he truly saw her. Not only the polite, smiling junior he knew, but also the fragile girl hiding her pain underneath. That encounter concluded with her in tears, and him standing silently, a witness to a bond unexpectedly forged through shared vulnerability. It was clear that some connections are born in the crucible of open honesty, leaving a lasting imprint on the soul. Later, warmth lingered in the air as her mother presented an elegantly decorated cup, promising a special tea. She set it gently on the table, her movements graceful and deliberate. The girl responded with a radiant smile, her earlier tension easing. Her mother explained that the tea had a wine-like aroma, but contained no alcohol, suggesting a hint of sugar to help relax the mind. The girl tasted it eagerly, exclaiming it was delicious and remarking that its aroma was so rich she preferred it without sugar. Her comment evoked a soft laugh from her mother. When asked about her own preferences, the girl cheerfully admitted she loved Darjeeling as well. They eagerly exchanged thoughts on their shared passion, leaving the boy to observe her silently, feeling a sense of quiet admiration. Her mother, with an emotional look, confided that she felt as if she'd gained another daughter. Then softly, she asked them to stop being just friends. Her words tinged with warmth and a touch of longing. The girl blushed, her face suffused with emotion, and gladly agreed with a gentle smile. As she prepared to leave, the boy offered to walk her to the station. She politely declined, her expression bittersweet, with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She explained that if she enjoyed herself too much, the loneliness afterward would be even sharper. She insisted she was fine, though concern clouded his face. Then, with a tender smile, she revealed that she now had a reason to stay, something that gave her hope amid uncertainty. She calls his name, causing him to turn with a look of confusion. Her back to him, she softly asks, "Have we become friends?" He responds simply, "Yes, we are." A shy wave of relief washes over her face, a touching sign that she has finally acknowledged her loneliness. Her smile radiates warmth as she expresses her hope to depend on him from now on. Her eyes turn toward the bustling cityscape, a silent promise hanging in the air between them. Yet, as she walks away alone, her reflection appears somber, reflecting a fleeting moment of happiness. Those may have been the two most joyful hours of her life, but now the glow vanishes, leaving her face clouded with shadows. Blushing yet resolute, she convinces herself that for now, remaining just friends is enough. A fragile hope, fragile as a thin sliver of light. Suddenly, a suited driver calls out, "Young lady," announcing he's there to pick her up, but her response is cold and detached, simply a thank you. The warmth from the brief connection elsewhere disappears instantly. Returning to his room, the boy shuts the door. An overwhelming loneliness crashes over him like a tidal wave. Reality hits with brutal force. He feels shaken, sweat beading on his face as he stares at his trembling hand, still warm from some unspoken moment, cursing his inability to stop shaking. This instant shattered him, the safe world he constructed with her crumbling into fragments, leaving him raw and exposed. He collapses onto the floor, face buried in his hands, overwhelmed with despair, questioning what he can do starting tomorrow. The haunting shadows of classmates flicker in his mind, their tormenting figures filling the empty classroom of his memory. He believes that only when he talks to her can he temporarily forget his suffering. A genuine, wondering smile crosses his face as he questions whether she saved him or perhaps just led him elsewhere, into a completely different world. These thoughts are unsettling yet tinged with hope, reminiscent of the emotional turns in Origu. His phone vibrates suddenly. He expects it to be another spam message or harassment. But to his utter surprise, it's a message from Satoshi, apologizing because his phone had broken. A vivid memory of their childhood flashes through his mind. More messages arrive as Satoshi explains he was busy with a club trip when his phone malfunctioned during a competition, and he asks to meet immediately at their old family restaurant. The boy sits in the dark, pondering how everyone has abandoned him. Will Satoshi still treat him as before? Yet, knowing someone still cares enough to reach out is enough to bring tears of happiness. He quickly replies with an agreement. At the restaurant, Satoshi waves him over urgently, getting straight to the point. He's aware of a serious problem. The boy falls silent in shock. Satoshi then bows deeply, voice thick with regret, apologizing for not knowing how terrible things had been for his friend. He admits he rarely uses social media, being preoccupied with a club trip, and only just found out now. With heartfelt remorse, he apologizes for not being there when his friend needed him most. A young boy, head bowed in quiet introspection, softly asked, "Do you believe in God?" Satoshi, initially puzzled, responded with a composed smile. He recalled how upon hearing the rumors, he immediately sensed they were false. It was the new club members who had shown him the posts, which sparked memories of a time when his close friend had spoken about a girl with genuine happiness shining in his eyes. This recollection convinced Satoshi there was a misunderstanding. Yet, he revealed that their teacher was genuinely worried by the reports. After hearing the story, Satoshi began questioning classmates, only to see how easily they accepted the falsehood. It dawned on him that the truth was being deliberately concealed. Driven by urgency, he dashed through the school corridors until he reached the teacher. In that moment, Satoshi's resolve burned fiercely, reminiscent of a hero standing against corruption, prepared to confront the teacher if he attempted to hide the truth. To Satoshi's surprise, the teacher begged for forgiveness and earnestly asked for any details about what had happened. He admitted he had only recently been made aware of the situation and that the information was incomplete. The teacher urged Satoshi to trust the adults and allow the educators to take responsibility. With a serious gaze, he added, "Please believe in us, even just a little." Satoshi was struck by the teacher's dedication and sincerity. As he listened, the boy's emotions overwhelmed him, and tears finally spilled over, releasing the pain he had been holding inside. His friend watched silently, offering only his silent presence as a comfort. Meanwhile, beneath the same city lights, another girl was fleeing through the streets, consumed by an almost tangible guilt. She was determined to apologize no matter what. Her frantic run ended behind a family restaurant's kitchen, where her face reflected distress as she gasped out into the night, her voice trembling with exhaustion and resolve. "I'm sorry. I've just arrived." Tears blurred her vision, fueling her resolve to restore her happiness with Eiji at any cost. Upon reaching his family's restaurant, her world shattered when she saw him speaking intimately with another girl. Her eyes widened in shock and confusion, a silent scream of disbelief echoing within her mind. She couldn't believe what she was witnessing. Recognizing the girl as Ichijo, the renowned, untouchable prodigy student, Miyuki's mind raced uncontrollably as she questioned why she, the school's top idol, was at A's house. She hid nearby, her thoughts spiraling as she desperately tried to understand the situation. Then she saw A's family warmly embracing Ichijo, while watched with a genuine, happy smile. A wave of sick jealousy twisted her features, convinced that this home wrecker was falling in love with a memories of happier times haunted her, fueling her internal screams that only she should know A's true charm. Her gaze fixed on Ichijo's profile with pure hatred, cursing fate for placing her in this painful position. Fate that had brought her face to face with her beloved's rival. Overcome by a flood of panic, Miyuki realized she had to act swiftly, or she risked losing Ai forever. Peering cautiously from behind a corner, her face etched with weariness and dread, she struggled to gather her scattered thoughts. Her mind spun with images of the ideal girl from a distinguished family, excelling equally in academics and sports, with nearly perfect grades. She remembered the rumors that Ichijo was famous for dismissing every love confession, with some even claiming she harbored an intense aversion to all men. Suddenly, Aji's mother spotted Miyuki's hiding spot and called out her name, causing her face to twist in pure horror. Her voice, sharp and commanding, questioned what she thought she was doing, lurking so openly. Miyuki froze, trembling with fear, as Aji's mother fixed her with a cold, unyielding glare. Sweat dripped down her face as her trembling heightened. She wondered whether Aji's mother already knew everything or if I had told her. Putting on a strained, awkward smile, Miyuki attempted to maintain composure, asking what Aji was doing and whether he was nearby. Without turning her head, Aji's mother coldly apologized, implying Miyuki should stop trying to approach her son's family. Stunned, Miyuki's voice faltered as she asked what her words could possibly mean. Her face mirrored her confusion and disbelief. In a firm, icy tone, Aji's mother challenged her to reflect inward and find her own answer. Then, a terrifying shadow seemed to rise around her, and Miyuki's worst fears were confirmed. Aji's mother revealed she knew Miyuki had been unfaithful before I even discovered it herself. She explained that her suspicion arose one day while having tea with friends at the mall, where she witnessed Miyuki happily holding hands with a man who clearly wasn't her son. Though she acknowledged that since Miyuki and I were not married, her actions weren't technically illegal, she lamented the pain that youthful love can bring. She rationalized that young couples could break up at any moment, and assumed I remained silent simply because it was too difficult to face their breakup. Initially, she felt sorry for both of them, but her perspective changed sharply when she realized the betrayal occurred on her son's birthday, a day he had eagerly anticipated, a day that turned his world upside down. Aji's mother's expression grew hollow as she was overwhelmed by the painful truth. Her trembling voice carried a quiet fury as she expressed her realization that Miyuki had deceived her son. Miyuki, desperate to deny everything, stammered protests, claiming the accusations were false. Clutching her bag in anguish, she was coldly dismissed when Aji's mother told her she had no obligation to listen to excuses. Her face cast in shadow, she warned Miyuki to stop the futile attempts at justification, revealing her deep-seated dislike and the growing inability to forgive her for the betrayal. Tears welled in Miyuki's eyes as she watched with horror, barely able to whisper a broken apology. Her mother declared she didn't want to hear her words. Yet, after more than a decade of knowing each other, she offered one last piece of advice. She acknowledged that love is free and individuals can choose their partners, but firmly insisted that Miyuki had no right to trample on another person's genuine feelings. Agi's mother delivered a final, cold reproach, asserting that Miyuki's actions, though perhaps not seen as a crime by her, were worse than any wrongdoing imaginable. She ordered Miyuki to start acting with some morals, her voice filled with icy disdain. Sweat dripped down Miyuki's face as she desperately begged to see I just once more. Her mother's face twisted with rage as she screamed that she refused her plea. She questioned what kind of mother would ever forgive someone who cheated and hurt her son's sincere feelings. While acknowledging that the final decision lay with Agi, Miyuki's mother warned her never to show her face again. She looked down on Miyuki with utter contempt, roaring that she was unworthy of her son's love. Left shattered and speechless, Miyuki's face became an expression of pure despair. She collapsed onto the ground, tears streaming down her cheeks, repeating no over and over, wishing things could be different. Her mother's voice turned cold as she blocked the entrance to their restaurant, ordering Miyuki to step aside immediately. With a final, sorrowful glance, she said goodbye to Miyuki, closing the door on their shared past forever. The door swung shut with a resonant chime, and the sign flipped to closed, sealing this chapter of Miyuki's life permanently. Now alone with the weight of her betrayal, Miyuki stood outside the shuttered shop, staring at the familiar sign. She knew she could never return, neither to that place nor to the life she once believed awaited her. Her body trembled as she sank to the ground, clutching her bag as if it were her only barrier against falling apart. The world around her felt empty, as if it had turned its back on her completely. She walked home alone, the streets stretching long and silent before her, each step heavier than the last. Her head stayed bowed, her shoulders hunched as if trying to make herself smaller, invisible. When she finally reached her house, the door opened to a familiar, gentle voice. Her mother welcomed her warmly, smiling at her early return. But the kindness in her words sounded too tender, too distant. Miyuki could barely respond. She muttered, "I'm home." Standing stiffly in the doorway, her eyes dull and unfocused, her heart weighed down by an overwhelming sense of loss. At the dining table, her mother chatters effortlessly, oblivious to the turmoil brewing within her daughter. She speaks of Eiji as if nothing has changed, softly laughing at their closeness and effortless affection. Her words are filled with warmth as she reminisces fondly, praising Miyuki's growth into a remarkable young woman. She recalls how Miyuki, from a young age, had always declared her intention to become Eiji's bride someday. Each innocent remark strikes Miyuki like a dagger, sharp and piercing. Her expression hardens, and her vision begins to blur at the edges, weighed down by her mother's naive pride. She offers a weak, subdued response, quietly agreeing, though her heart screams in silent denial. Yet, despite her inner chaos, she cannot object. She feels she has no right to do so. Excusing herself gently, Miyuki rises and retreats to her room. Her mother wishes her luck on an impending exam, still smiling and trusting, unaware of the storm within. As Miyuki closes the door behind her, she leans against it, trembling uncontrollably. Alone at last, her legs give way, and she sinks onto her bed. Her thoughts spiral rapidly, relentless and uncontainable. It is not merely about AG, nor solely about herself. She recognizes she has betrayed her own mother, someone who trusted her, believed in her, and dreamed of her future with unwavering certainty. Tears stream freely now, soaking her pillow as she clutches her chest and gasps for breath. She convinces herself it is too late to pretend innocence, too late to care genuinely, too late to seek forgiveness. She wonders how she became someone who repeatedly betrays the people she loves most. Darkness clouds her mind as she faces a harsh truth she has long avoided. She did not just cheat. She contributed to isolating AG. She was complicit in the conspiracy that framed him, robbed him of his place, and left him abandoned. That truth reverberates relentlessly in her mind, merciless and deafening. There is no way to escape it, no future in which she can be forgiven. Her hands tremble as she opens a drawer and pulls out an old photograph. It shows her and AG standing side by side at a school entrance ceremony, smiling brightly, filled with hope. Her trembling fingers crush the fragile surface, tears spilling onto the image. She presses it against her chest, sobbing uncontrollably, mourning the person she was in that moment. Her phone lights up in her hand. After a long pause, she types a message. Each word feels like a step further into darkness, yet she persuades herself that she has no choice. She asks to see someone, to be accepted, regardless of how despicable she must become, regardless of how low she must sink. She tells herself she deserves this punishment. The next day passes quietly, uneventful. At the cafe, life continues as usual. AG prepares to leave, pale and visibly unwell, mentioning his stomach pain and poor condition. He offers a polite farewell, unaware of what awaits him outside. Then, a bright voice greets him. A girl with light hair smiles warmly, cheerfully greeting him. I arrive at the house earlier than expected, her cheerful voice ringing out as she calls for AG. Standing at the door with her bag in hand, she radiates excitement, unaware of how abruptly her arrival feels from inside. AG, who was just about to leave, immediately stops in his tracks. His hand remains on the door handle, his face showing surprise and confusion. He opens the door slightly, flustered, questioning why she would shut the door when he thought they would go to school together. He quickly explains that he woke up early simply for that purpose. His cheeks are flushed, beads of sweat dot his forehead, and his thoughts scramble to catch up. From inside, his mother appears with her usual calm and warm smile. She simply states that I came to pick him up and gently urges him not to keep her waiting. Her voice is soft but firm, leaving no room for argument. She waits just outside, relaxed and cheerful, calling him to hurry. After a brief hesitation, AG exhales deeply and concedes. The tension eases from his shoulders as he agrees and steps out. The moment they stand together, the atmosphere shifts completely. I greets AG's mother politely, bowing with a bright smile. Her manners are impeccable, and her presence radiates warmth and respect. AG's mother responds naturally, treating her as if she were a close family member. A sense of familiarity settles effortlessly into the scene. As they begin to converse, their talk becomes casual and light. The topic of dinner comes up, and AG's mother mentions an oyster fry that's popular for the evening. I reacts with genuine enthusiasm, confessing her love for oyster fry. Her joy is pure and infectious. AG's mother chuckles, sharing that the oyster fry is always on the house for her. I offers a sincere protest, saying she feels guilty for being treated so generously so often and promises to pay next time. Her words come from a genuine place, not a sense of obligation. AG's mother quickly dismisses her concern, assuring her there's no need to worry and that takeout is always an option if she wants it. The kindness feels natural, freely given. I responds with visible gratitude, praising her for her responsibility and thoughtfulness. Their exchange is warm, homely, and effortless, flowing smoothly. Eventually, Eiji's mother gently urges him to stop dawdling and get moving. She lightly nudges him forward, teasing as he stumbles a step. I laugh softly, clearly enjoying the moment. Eiji glances back one last time, smiling, and announces that he's leaving. His voice sounds calm, a tone absent earlier. From the doorway, Eiji's mother watches as they walk away. Her expression is gentle, contemplative, and quietly satisfied. She wishes them a good day, her voice lingering softly as they disappear into the bright morning ahead. They continue their journey together, framed by an open road and the gentle glow of dawn. The past no longer walks beside Eiji. Only what is to come remains. Ichigo casually asks if Eiji often eats fried oysters, to which Eiji replies that only sometimes. Ichigo expressed her enthusiasm for their upcoming time together, showing genuine interest in sharing a meal. She talked about her preferences, mentioning that spicy sauces taste delicious, and that lemon or ponzu can add a refreshing touch. She personally often drizzles Worcester sauce over fried oysters. Honest with himself, Eiji admitted that Ichigo's suggestion to attend school together eased the fears he used to carry. They continued walking side by side in quiet companionship toward their destination. Nearby students cast curious glances and whispered among themselves. Eiji hesitated, feeling the weight of their gaze, and hesitantly began with, "But," as if worried about what might come next. Someone among the students questioned why Ichigo was walking with a boy, suggesting it was Ono, rumored to have mistreated Miyuki. Another voice advised against pushing their luck. Eiji asked if Ichigo was truly comfortable, warning that her staying close might invite teasing or bullying for her too. She brushed off such worries, asserting it was unlikely. Surprisingly, she added that despite the circumstances, she considered herself fairly popular, which seemed to satisfy Eiji. She casually mentioned that she had not heard any negative rumors about herself. In another scene, a boy asked her out. She politely declined, explaining that while she appreciated his feelings, she preferred to remain friends. The boy accepted her rejection awkwardly but accepted it nonetheless. Ichigo thanked him sincerely, saying she was happy he liked her, but she hoped they could stay friends. Her kindness in turning down confessions without embarrassment helped her maintain her popularity among classmates. She was careful not to humiliate anyone afterward. Then, Ichigo explained to Eiji that continuing to go to school together would likely protect him from open insults. She cheerfully encouraged him to use whatever advantages he could, noting that walking with her made things safer. She also mentioned that girls often like talking about romantic rumors, and if things went on smoothly, false accusations might eventually be overwritten by new gossip. Eiji voiced concern about damaging her reputation, but she dismissed it, calling him very kind. She firmly stated that her reputation would stay intact because she chose to walk with a friend. People who judge others without understanding aren't worth her concern. Her confidence deeply surprised Eiji. Ichigo then lightheartedly said it was too soon for tears and offered to cry together after everything was over. Eiji admired her strength, calling her amazing. Ultimately, he acknowledged that thanks to Satoshi, he had found the courage to return to school. With Ichigo's support, he felt motivated to keep moving forward together. He admits that he is finally beginning to trust people once more. Upon arriving at school, Ichigo casually notes that they have reached their destination. Before heading to her activities, she asks whether he will walk home with her again later. Eiji appears slightly surprised but gently reminds her that she was the one who suggested walking together initially. He understands now that her intention is to support him. Even on the way home, some nearby students whisper about them, but he perceives her genuine concern more clearly. Ichigo lightly jokes, asking him to treat her to fried oysters if that's the case, then quickly adds that she's only joking. Eiji responds playfully, telling her to go easy on him. Later at school, Ichigo walks down the hallway, while Eiji proceeds separately toward his classroom. When he reaches his locker, he notices something unusual. Unlike previous days when it was filled with trash, today it is spotless. Soon, A male teacher greets him cordially and instructs him to meet Takeyaji-sensei in the staff room. Some nearby students seem taken aback by the friendly interaction between teacher and student. Eiji thanks the teacher politely, noting that the staff has been concerned about him since yesterday. As he walks toward the staff room, he reflects that some teachers still harbor suspicion and that he prefers not to draw attention to himself. Finally, he reaches the corridor near the staff room, where another teacher is waiting, seemingly ready to speak. Recognizing Takeyanagi-sensei, Eiji wonders why the teacher is outside instead of inside. The teacher greets him normally and acknowledges that entering the staff room alone might be difficult given the current circumstances. Eiji appreciates the consideration. The teacher responds that it is simply part of his duty and suggests they talk first. Instead of using the counseling room, he proposes a conference room, explaining that the counseling space can sometimes foster a sense of hierarchy. He prefers a setting where they can converse more equally. Eiji agrees, feeling more comfortable with this choice. They enter the room and sit down together. Before hearing the full story, the teacher has something to say. Suddenly, he bows deeply in sincere apology, admitting that he failed to notice the changes Eiji was experiencing earlier, which contributed to his suffering. The teacher laments that this oversight is also his responsibility. Eiji is surprised by this gesture and quickly urges him to raise his head. He admits that he, too, bears some fault for not seeking help sooner. He remarks that recognizing the situation so quickly is already commendable. The teacher thanks him softly for his words. Then, gently, he asks if Eiji is willing to share everything that has happened. He reassures him that it's perfectly fine to wait until he feels ready and that sharing gradually is entirely acceptable. He also mentions that he has already heard a rough outline from Imith and understands that something painful has happened to Eiji. The conversation halts there, leaving the situation unresolved for the moment. Suddenly, Eiji freezes, his eyes widening in shock as sweat beads form on his face, overwhelmed by the weight of what he has just realized. It is clear that something has caught him completely off guard. All of his disturbing memories, Mui calling him an abusive boyfriend, Kondo senpai's cruelty, whispers from classmates, flood into his mind. I stood amidst those voices, feeling confused and overwhelmed. At that moment, Takeyanagi-sensei stepped in, looking slightly flustered, and quickly apologized, acknowledging he had reacted too hastily earlier. I bowed my head slightly and softly offered my own apology. Takeyanagi-sensei gently reassured us that there was no need to rush into explanations. We didn't have to discuss everything right now. There was no obligation to do so today. To ease the tension, the teacher asked if I wanted something to drink, joking that usually such a gesture wouldn't be permitted, but today he would treat us. He then inquired if I was feeling thirsty. I politely responded that there was no need for him to apologize. As he moved toward the door, I hesitated briefly, wondering if it was really okay, given that the first period was about to begin. Takeyanagi-sensei reassured me calmly that it was no problem. I simply said, "Okay, I'll wait." He added that a soda would be fine. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the first period had already started, with a substitute teacher covering the world history class. Right now, the main focus was supporting IG, who was evidently going through a very tough time. Hearing this, my expression softened slightly, and with growing emotion in his voice, I quietly said, "Thank you very much." Moments later, Takeyanagi-sensei returned with 2 drinks in hand. I accepted the can politely and expressed my thanks. The teacher smiled and explained that he had intentionally chosen a large drink for me, considering the hot weather. He even decided to break his usual low-sugar diet and drink one himself, an admirable gesture. Both of them sat quietly at the table, sipping their drinks, and the tension in the room eased somewhat. After a brief silence, I turned slightly toward the teacher and asked honestly why he chose to believe me. Takeyanagi-sensei raised 2 fingers and calmly answered that there were 2 reasons. First, adults generally tend to see situations more objectively than students. Currently, many students tend to be swept away by irresponsible rumors. He explained that this kind of thing frequently occurs, especially online, where people easily believe they are fighting for justice while attacking someone they portray as a villain. These attacks are often accompanied by harsh words and accusations whose sources remain unclear. Yet, the rumors continue to spread, causing further damage. The teacher observes that a similar pattern is unfolding once again. The students currently engaged in bullying IG are unknowingly repeating the same behavior. Then he introduces a second reason for concern: the possibility that the rumor might be true, however slight. The chance is not entirely zero. Hearing this, IG directly asks what the teacher would do if he were truly the person described by those rumors. The teacher responds with calm confidence. No matter how complicated the situation appears, IG does not seem like someone who would resort to violence of that kind. To the teacher, Aokwon simply does not seem like the type of student capable of such cruelty. The teacher offers a gentle smile and attributes this perception to instinct. Upon hearing this, IG lowers his gaze slightly, his face tightening as if gathering the courage to reveal something important. After a brief pause, he grips his drink firmly and lifts his head once more. In a quiet voice, he addresses the teacher, wishing to explain something truthfully. The teacher listens carefully. IG begins by admitting a confession. Yes, he and Miyuki were dating. He then recounts the events of his birthday on August 31st. They had planned a date that day, but suddenly Miyuki sent a message saying she could no longer meet. Later, while strolling alone through the city, he unexpectedly saw her. Miyuki was there walking with Kondo in a shopping mall area. Confused, he approached them to verify what he saw. Without much hesitation, he instinctively grabbed Miyuki's arm. Yet, Miyuki responded as if in pain, even though IG insists he did not force her. At that moment, Kondo stepped forward angrily. He glared at IG and shouted accusations, calling him a rough man abusing his own girlfriend. Takanagi-sensei's expression shifts. He appears shocked as he processes IG's revelations. Realizing the gravity of the situation, the teacher states that this is no longer just a matter of cheating. If IG's account is accurate, it involves accusations of violence and defamation. Miyuki's response had been decisive. After Kondo demanded she choose between him and IG, Miyuki chose Kondo without hesitation. IG quietly confirms this, his head bowed. Takanagi-sensei looks surprised and asks if Miyuki genuinely made her choice. IG slowly nods to affirm it. The teacher gently places a hand on IG's shoulder, understanding how painful this must be. IG bows his head and quietly thanks the teacher for listening. As the teacher reflects on what he has heard, one name begins to resonate clearly in his mind. Takanagi-sensei then shares what he knows about Kondo. He is a prominent member of the school's soccer team, with respectable academic results. Outwardly, he behaves as a friendly and lively student, but his morals are questionable and his actions far from commendable. Within the school community, Kondo's reputation remains tarnished, largely due to his recurring involvement in conflicts relating to girls. This persistent controversy makes Takanagi-sensei even more skeptical of the recent accusation. He observes that if Kondo had genuinely assaulted IG, physical evidence would be evident, most likely requiring hospital documentation. Yet, based on IG's condition and the details presented, there is no definitive medical proof to support such an incident. This absence of tangible evidence leaves the story vulnerable to unraveling under closer scrutiny. Takanagi-sensei begins to contemplate his next steps carefully. He recognizes that Kondo will likely attempt to justify his actions, and therefore, the priority becomes gathering comprehensive information and identifying any inconsistencies in Kondo's account. He understands that, as an adult and a responsible educator, it is his duty to intervene. At this point, forcing IG to return to a classroom filled with hostility could cause lasting emotional harm. The overarching goal is to safeguard IG's future and reduce the potential damages this situation might inflict on his school life. Meanwhile, the school's administrative staff is already devising a plan to address the crisis. The principal and fellow teachers coordinate their efforts, ultimately deciding that Anakun will temporarily continue his studies through extra lessons or independent work rather than re-enter the classroom immediately. They believe that neither allowing him to withdraw nor neglecting the issue will lead to a proper resolution. Prolonging the situation, however, risks worsening Iwano's standing and deteriorating the environment further. Back in the classroom, IG quietly offers an apology to Takiyanagi-sensei. He feels guilty, thinking that his situation may be causing trouble for the teacher. Without delay, Takiyanagi-sensei responds with conviction, firmly grasping IG's shoulders and urging him to listen. He emphasizes that this matter is not a burden but part of their shared responsibility as educators and students. The teacher gently points out that IG's sense of duty might be overly strong. His kindness often leads him to shoulder burdens alone, which is not necessary. Takiyanagi-sensei reminds IG of a lesson from the past, that kindness is not a weakness but a strength, and that feeling responsible for others is natural. He acknowledges that when genuine feelings are betrayed or broken, even adults can feel as though their hearts have shattered. Therefore, seeking help is not shameful. IG does not need to face everything unaided. He can rely on friends, family, teachers, or older siblings for support. The teacher also reassures IG that he is not the only one worried. Several staff members, including Mitsui-sensei, share concerns for IG's well-being. In this moment, many people care deeply and wish to offer their assistance, emphasizing that IG is not alone in facing this difficult time. Takiyaji-sensei addresses IG with a composed and reassuring tone, emphasizing that during challenging times, it is crucial to lean on others. He reassures him that seeking support from a mentor is not a sign of weakness. Gently, he offers additional guidance, advising IG to prioritize his own well-being when life becomes overwhelming. He genuinely urges IG to care for himself before worrying about external issues. IG listens quietly beside him, and the tension that once clouded his face begins to ease after all he has endured. A subtle smile gently crosses his lips as he simply replies, "All right." For the first time in a while, IG seems prepared to move forward. With that quiet moment of reassurance, the scene comes to a pause. The story develops gradually, yet this pace feels right. Truly, Takiyanagi-sensei is a rare character in manga and anime. Unlike many teachers who either ignore problems or dismiss rumors, he actively listens, maintains calm, and chooses to protect his student when others have already judged him. It is uncommon to see such a well-crafted teacher, someone who thinks like a real adult and champions the truth rather than taking the easy way out. Takiyanagi-sensei exemplifies a truly admirable character. However, the story remains far from concluded, as the secrets surrounding Miyuki and Kondo have yet to fully surface. The narrative continues to unfold, promising more revelations ahead.